this time I was smart enough to wear a different color jacket.
Yes.
I'm just a floating head. But then I thought, what if they were wearing
It could be a no-win situation. Oh, we don't have mics on our buttons.
Oh.
That makes it more difficult.
Yeah, it does make it a lot more difficult.
Yeah, we're gonna have to lean in and. I wonder why.
Any questions?
Why aren't our mics on our bodies?
I don't know, it's different this time.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I remember, they were scolding me because I had on that long necklace.
Are they gonna do,
That was presenting problems for me. Yeah, no, it's my good luck necklace.
I can see it perfectly.
Yeah. And yeah, it's sort of like, but we like that Vanna White routine.
Are we going to see the countdown? So if that's halfway done and
They are in
okay. So when I'm halfway through, I'll check.
audience that this time we have a rebuttal, so.
Yeah.
And we'll do the same order to do the rebuttal, okay?
What do you mean the same order?
Yeah.
So like, if Roxanne answers the question first, and then you, and then Rickett, then when it goes to the rebuttal, it'll be Roxanne, then
Yeah.
you, and Rickett, okay?
Okay.
And vice
I'll
versa.
remind you.
Got it.
We need to do a mic check, starting with,
Yeah, Roxanne, could you start talking into the mic like you're gonna be answering your question or whatever, say whatever you want, it's a mic check.
Hello. Good evening. Hello there.
Keep going.
Hola. Something else?
If you want,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Why don't you try it when you're sitting up rather than?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I didn't know what your
you might want it a little closer.
yeah, what your range was. Yes. Sit up straight. So, are you still wondering about me talking? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Can you start talking into the mic, please?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
And as if
9,
you're answering
10,
a question too, as far as
11,
that volume,
12.
okay?
Okay.
Whatever you'd be talking with.
All right.
Yeah, just say words.
Words and hello, hi, how are you? Hi to all my friends that I can't really see anymore. Is that good? Okay.
Test 1, 2, 3. Like, what is it? The quick brown fox lazy fox jumped over the brown moon. What was it? How does that go? The lazy brown fox jumped quickly over the moon, or something of that nature.
I'm like for bite.
All good dogs go to heaven.
Oh, I'll.
Do you want me to speak too? Okay, thank GCTV for doing all this. And I'm expecting a really good event here, so thank you very much. Is that long enough? You want me to talk more? Okay, thank you. In.
20 seconds. Four. Okay.
You're watching GCTV's broadcast of the 2019 Greenfield mayoral debate. Now here's your host and moderator, the Recorder's Joan Livingston.
Four, three, two, one.
Good evening and welcome to the Greenfield Mayoral Forum. I'm Joan Livingston, editor of the Greenfield Recorder. On November 5th, voters will elect a new mayor as William Martin, who has held that post for 10 years, is not seeking re-election. And he'll be one of the 3 people who are present tonight who will succeed him. Let me introduce them. To my left here, Roxanne Wiedegartner, who was the top vote getter in the preliminary election, and Sheila Gilmore came in second. Their names will be on the ballot of the general election. And Brickett, who did not win enough to be one on the ballot, but is conducting a write-in campaign. Tonight's forum has a different format than the one we had in August. Each candidate will still have up to 5 minutes to give an opening and closing statement, and we will rotate who gets to go first. But questions will be handled a little differently. The candidates will still have up to 2 minutes to answer questions, and then they will have 1 minute for rebuttal in which they can talk about a point another candidate made or clarify a point they made. And Shelby Ashline, the Recorder's news editor, will be keeping track of the time and let them know when their turn is up. So let's begin with an opening statement with Roxanne Wiedegartner.
Good evening, Greenfield, and thank you to GCTV and the Recorder for hosting this second debate, and thank you to the voters of Greenfield for giving me the opportunity, through your votes in September, to be here tonight. I hope tonight to continue the conversation that I started with you back in February about why I want to be your mayor. I've enjoyed hearing from many of you as I've stood out on the street with my sign, or at house parties, or while door knocking, or in the grocery aisle, or through Facebook and my website, roxanneformayor.org. Among the messages you've conveyed are your concerns for the future of Greenfield, about how we need to have more economic development in order to stabilize to grow our tax base and stabilize our tax rate, about our new library, pro or con, and about nuts and bolts issues such as the need to finally get Stetson Drive paved as by making it a public way, and the need for FRTA weeknight and weekend transportation routes, and your concerns about the need to get, in your words, our town council back on track to do the business of Greenfield in a more civil and concerted way. The list is long, but I've learned a lot from you. What I want you to know most of all about those conversations is that the more I've talked with you, the more I really do want to be your mayor. My only agenda is to do the work that needs to be done to move Greenfield forward, and my only special interests are you, the citizens. My time serving on the school committee and the planning board as a member and chair of both committees, some 22 years altogether, sets me apart from the other candidate and represents the broader experience we need in a city CEO. Education and economic development are 2 critical parts of what make our city work. One represents a significant investment in our future, but also a significant portion of our budget. The other helps us grow our tax base to offset rising costs, providing the town services and maintaining our infrastructure. I've participated in both of those aspects of running our city. being on the planning board for 16 years allowed me to hear firsthand what businesses are looking for in Greenfield. I know we can work smarter to continue making this city a viable, attractive place to do business. Serving on the school committee allowed me to understand the education and funding issues of running a school system that offers our children the education they need to be productive citizens in the 21st century. I had the opportunity to negotiate contracts with 5 bargaining units, to create 6 budgets, to hire a new superintendent, and to create policies impacting the quality of education we provide, the civility and inclusiveness of our students, and the effective, efficient operation of our schools. Running a city of any size, anywhere, is challenging. We have many challenges ahead of us, such as increasing public transportation routes, upgrading our sewer and water infrastructure, growing our tax base, and others. It will take time to build the trusting relationships that will lay the foundation for the hard work of solving our city's problems, of moving forward difficult policy initiatives, and of working within our financial capabilities, and of creating change, embracing innovation, and authentic collaboration. But know this, Greenfield, I will be a fierce advocate for Greenfield, a mayor you can be proud of, whether I'm conducting the town's business in my office or while at the highest levels of government and business. As they say, 80% of success is showing up. As your mayor, I will be prepared and on the job daily, working for all the people of Greenfield. I ask you for your vote on November 5th.
Thank you, Roxanne. Sheila, you're next.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight, and for everyone at the Recorder and GCTV who organized this forum and made it possible. I'm running for mayor because Greenfield is ready for new leadership. And I know that there are enough people in Greenfield who share my values and want to see Greenfield move forward. I believe that we can live within our means without selling ourselves short. It will take careful planning and lots of hard work, but I know that our community is up for the task. As we take on this work, it's important that Greenfield has a leader who is responsive and approachable, who will not work to silence others who disagree with them, but will instead work to incorporate their feedback as we plan for the future. I'm prepared to have difficult conversations about the choices before us. I know that not everybody is going to see eye to eye on everything, but we need to bring more people to the table if we're truly going to move forward as a community. I began leading people early in my career. I served in the military for 8 years as a Russian linguist and intelligence analyst, where I supervised teams of young men and women through rotating shifts. I was promoted and served on my commander's staff in the Strategic Planning Office, managing the Compliance Management Program, where I inspected work areas for compliance with military and federal regulations. Later, I was selected for a team of inspectors protecting U.S. citizens' Fourth Amendment rights from illegal search and seizure during military intelligence operations. After leaving the military, I went on to earn my master's degree in public policy and administration from UMass Amherst, where I studied policy analysis, financial management, and a variety of social issues, including education policy, homelessness, and poverty. I served on the executive board for my union for several years, where I protected workers from workplace discrimination, bargained contracts, and negotiated with management on behalf of 1,000 members. I have the right mix of skills, experience, and values to help Greenfield thrive while maintaining the small-town charm we all love. As mayor, I will implement a transparent budgeting process where residents will have a chance to weigh in with their priorities early in the decision-making process. I will continue our council president's work with the Greenfield Affordable Housing Board to find solutions to our affordable housing crisis. I will champion sustainable, beneficial economic growth by offering incentives to homegrown businesses who are committed to remaining in our community. Our economic development plans need to focus on resilient business models that are not subject to the pressures of e-commerce and globalization. Businesses that offer the experiences, services, and jobs that we need in our community, including high-tech entrepreneurs, skilled manufacturing, green businesses, the creative economy, recreation, and tourism. I will work with the department heads and town employees to address issues in their workplaces that prevent us from retaining talented professionals so our employees can continue to serve Greenfield and provide our residents with top quality services. I will work with the City Council, the school committee, and our various boards and commissions to partner on issues that are important to our town and make sure that we're all pulling Greenfield in the same positive direction. And all along the way, everybody in Greenfield will have my ear. I've always made myself available to anybody who wants to meet, and I will continue to do so, either one-on-one or in public forums, to make sure that I'm truly serving the needs of the residents. I look forward to earning your vote on November 5th, and I'm excited to work together on the next chapter for Greenfield.
Thank you, Sheila. Brickett, it's now your turn.
I would like to thank the recorder as well as GCTV for putting on the second forum. And I'd also like to thank you for your inclusiveness and including myself as a write-in candidate. I believe that being a write-in candidate is important to the process. There's a reason that there's a write-in spot on each ballot for someone like me who would like to be a write-in candidate. So I appreciate your inclusiveness. Thank you. Greenfield needs true leadership in a candidate who has been here, who has served for 19 years, and that candidate is me. I've served on every subcommittee of the town council, now the city council. I have served as president, I have served as vice president, I've served as its parliamentarian, and I have served with honor and integrity the entire time. And I look forward in hopes on November 5th that you will find that I am the right candidate for the position of the mayor of Greenfield. Greenfield is very diverse, not only in culture, but in its economics. Greenfield has a very wide swath of folks from different economic backgrounds. We have people with lots of means, and we have people with no means. Like a chain, it's only as strong as its weakest link, and our community is only as strong as those most vulnerable citizens. We must move forward in this town, but we must move forward making sure that we don't leave behind the very people who need the most help from us. Greenfield is at a crossroads in this election, and I'm running because I know the government can run more effectively and have a more efficient leadership, and that leadership is leadership that I can provide. We must stabilize our long-term financial picture before we can think about doing any of the other things that we have in Greenfield that are not required to provide the level of service that our residents require. I believe that we as a community have many complex issues facing us, such as our high poverty rate and our homelessness and the opioid epidemic, which none of those things are unique to Greenfield. They're happening everywhere. It would be a disservice for me to say that we could solve that on our own. We need help, and we need to partner collaboratively with the state and the federal government to help us solve those problems. Greenfield is viewed on the outside as anti-business. That is a reality, and we need to change that. That view makes it difficult to attract businesses. However, we can turn that around and we can attract the businesses that we need if we have the right person at the top with the right people below them to do that. Before we can address any one of those issues, however, we have to address the issue of affordability of living here. Greenfield is a wonderful community. After all, we all live here, so we know that it's a great community. I look at numbers when I look at how we're doing. I look at the numbers and I look at the metrics. Greenfield is very near the bottom of equalized valuation. And equalized valuation is the metric that the state uses to determine how much you can pay for as a city. We rank 319 out of 351 communities. Our tax bills are 230 out of 351. There is a very large gap between what we can afford and what we are charging our taxpayers. I believe we need to close that gap, and we need to close that gap by prioritizing what we really absolutely need. And then once we're able to get what we want, we can get what we want. I hope that you will vote by write-in for me on the November 5th ballot, and I hope that I can lead Greenfield into the future by providing what we need versus that which we just want. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we will start with questions. Question 1. If the library is voted down and a class action lawsuit follows because it is not up to ADA standards, as mayor, how would you approach this situation? Now that'll be Sheila, Brickett, then Roxanne, okay? Do you want me to repeat it again?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
I'm glad that you asked that question. I know that when I'm knocking on doors and I'm talking to voters, some people are opposed to the library, and I have talked to them about what this means for Greenfield on November 6th if we don't bring things up to code. It's not an option for us to sit back and do nothing. It's going to cost nearly the same amount to bring it up to code and have far fewer, we would have fewer square feet for books. We would have less room for programming. We're not going to have as good of a library. So if we're paying a similar cost, it seems to me that the answer should be very easy and we should just vote yes for the library. People who don't necessarily look at the numbers or maybe they just don't trust those numbers, I don't think that they've thought through what happens if somebody gets hurt in December and then they sue the town. And at that point, that's going to be very expensive. It's something that taxpayers are going to have to pay for. And I think that as mayor, I wouldn't fight it because I know that it's wrong. I would try to settle it as quickly as possible and hopefully for as little as possible. But I think that it's irresponsible to be thinking about that. I think we need to go with Plan A, and I think we need to vote for this library.
Thank you. Brickett?
Thank you for the question. The current library is grandfathered in its current setting. So the fact that we would have the conversation about what if we have a class action lawsuit, we could think about that. Yes, absolutely. But for library functions, the library is in fact grandfathered. It's allowed to be used the way that it is. The only thing that triggers that is to do certain other upgrades and if you trigger the thresholds. My problem with the plan as provided is that there are no numbers that make any sense. There are numbers from people who have financial interest in not redoing and not refurbishing the library, and I can't sit here and tell you whether refurbishing it or not, which way is the way to go. But what I can tell you is that if there is a conflict of interest in the person who is submitting the numbers, that's a problem. So, in my opinion, what we need to be doing is looking at the real numbers as to what is really going to happen and how we can move forward with that. Whether it's a new library or not, we have not done our due diligence to figure out the other options. I saw some paperwork that came through that was literally 3 pages that someone just sort of wrote down, okay, this is what we need, this is what we need, this is how much it's going to be, with absolutely nothing behind it to back up those numbers. I would hope that that's not what we're going to be going on. We spent $40,000 on an ADA transition plan that took months to create that was wrong. How can we go through that building in a day and come up with $8 million worth of things that need to be done with only a day's time? That doesn't make sense. I'm looking for numbers that make sense, and I'm looking for someone to provide those numbers to me who doesn't have a financial interest in building the new one.
Thank you. Roxanne, it's your turn.
Yes. It's a very good question. I, too, was asked once upon a time at a house party, do you have a plan B? And I believe that Plan A is the best plan, but I recognize that that this is going to the voters, and it's my hope that the voters approve a new library, but I also know it's being realistic. I know that it's possible that will not happen. And that means that we have no other choice but to begin to figure out how to make it ADA compliant. The problem with that is, once you begin those renovations, under law, if you reach a certain cost threshold, you must then adhere to state and federal restrictions for the building, for accessibility of the building. After renovations, you would have a smaller building for the same cost or potentially higher than Greenfield's share of paying for a new library. Good common sense tells us that it's better to invest in a larger, new, energy-efficient library than it is, and that it will be less costly to maintain rather than renovate an outdated building that I do not believe there is any grandfathering for once you have to begin the upgrades. I feel like Plan A, get us a new library, one that isn't wasteful spending, but one that is very wise spending and a deal that we cannot pass at this time.
Thank you. Now we'll give each of you 1 minute for rebuttal, or if you want to clarify a statement you made. And Sheila, we'll begin with you.
Mm-hmm. So I understand that we want to make sure that there's no conflict of interest. And I do understand that it was very frustrating to receive the solid numbers on the library very late. But I would like to remind people that, we spend tax money to pay for these estimates. And if we're going to disregard them, I would question why we've spent the money in the first place. I think that if we're going to be trusting people to do work for our town, we need to empower them to do that work. We need to trust what they come back with, or we're better off not doing it at all. Again, I still want to say that we should go with Plan A. I really feel like that is the safest way for everybody in our town, including people who have disabilities, not just our own financial interests.
Thank you.
So to be clear, the building as it sits right now is in fact grandfathered. So I just want to be clear about that. There is an option B, and an option B, and again, it's with the voters, and therefore what they say is what's going to happen, so that's the way that it is. The option B is that we as a city could decide to build a smaller building that fits our town better than a building that is a third the size of Home Depot. We could go back to the drawing board and we could decide that, hey, we just built a senior center / community center for $4.6 million, and I just can't understand how we could build that building for half the cost that they're saying it would take to rehab a smaller building to be a library. So we could go back to the drawing board and decide that we want to do it on our own and do a better, smaller sized building, and that would be a perfect Plan B if it did not pass at the ballot.
Okay. Roxanne?
The Library Building Committee and the Board of Trustees have spent a great deal of time over the last few years, past 2 or 3 years, coming up with that library plan. They even had a much larger plan at one point, and the mayor said, no, you have to go back and make it smaller. So they went back and they made it smaller. In order to do a project like that, you have to hire a project manager, someone who's well-versed in doing projects like that. That is the person whose numbers I would trust. That is the person who gave us those numbers for renovation. So I do believe that Plan A is still the right way to go, and I feel that we have to trust the experts that we know whether they have a financial interest because they were hired by us. We hire a lot of experts to do work. That's why we hire them. They deserve the money that they get. So the financial interest piece is a non-starter.
Okay. Question 2. The biggest issue facing Greenfield Public Schools is money, to be honest. What can the city do to fix this? And Brickett, you will be the first to answer.
Thank you for that question. Well, as I'm sure everybody knows, in the last budget, the last two budgets, in fact, I was on the side of producing or finding more funds for the schools to be able to operate effectively and efficiently. I believe that the schools need to have an audit of what they're doing, and this was brought up both by the current mayor and as well by the superintendent of schools, to look at where the funding is going, how much of the funding is being spent, and where it's being spent, and how it's being spent. And I believe that that is an appropriate step to take, given the fact that the children are our future. I do have a dog in the fight, so to speak. Before I would be out of office, my daughter would be entering the public schools. So, I believe to know where the money is going is what we need to figure out so that we can decide how we want to either restructure or find a way to better reallocate funds that we have to the school department. So there's not going to be any easy answer, and frankly, what we've done on the council has been just to try to help and to keep moving forward so that we don't have a situation like we had many years ago when I was also on the council, where there was a mass exodus of school choice out, and we don't want to get into that situation again. So I've been committed to trying to make sure that the schools have what they need, and that we make sure that we watch how much we're giving them to make sure that they're getting what they need within our means. So that's where I stand and have stood for the past many years.
Thank you. Roxanne, your turn.
Okay. Well, I am the only candidate in this race that has school committee experience. And as mayor and a voting member of the school committee, I'd use that experience to bridge between other members of our town government and the school committee members who were actually elected to represent parents and teachers and to strongly support and fund our schools. And that relationship begins by open communication, and the budgeting process with the schools begins by open communication too. Not top-down communication, not communication where you hide the budget issues that you're facing, but one where we have an open conversation with the town council, who will be funding that, between the administration and the school committee, and everyone is at the table, including unions, representatives if necessary or when necessary. Everyone is at the table working to an end, which is to adequately fund our school education so that we can create schools and students who can be productive citizens in the 21st century. Education is the DNA of our economic vitality. We must become the education destination for Franklin County, where people come to live and start new businesses, because we invest in our schools, we invest in our future.
Thank you. Sheila?
So, the way that public schools are funded in Massachusetts is not sustainable for our community or any other community in Massachusetts. When you're paying for education out of property taxes, what happens is poorer neighborhoods will have less funding for their schools than richer neighborhoods. This is something that needs to be fixed at the state level. This is something that a lot of parents and educators have already been working on. I'm a member of the Massachusetts Teachers Association, and I've spent the last year working with my fellow union members on the Fund Our Future campaign, trying to bring in more money from the state to help rural communities like Greenfield, where we do have less wealth than other communities in Massachusetts. These funding models are very Boston-centric because I think that in Boston, sometimes they forget that anything exists west of Worcester. So we have to, make a little bit of noise. We don't have to be rude, but we have to let them know that we're here, and we have to let them know that this isn't working for our students, and they need to help us do this because we can't just keep taxing our Greenfield residents. We're never going to be able to pay for it, and there's going to be a fiscal cliff. There are going to be consequences if we can't get this money.
Thank you. Now we have 1 minute rebuttal. Brickett?
Thank you. Just some numbers. The total education expenses in Greenfield are, in this current fiscal year, are approximately $32 million out of a $51 million budget. We spend a lot of our money, better than half, on the schools. So while things may be unsustainable and the funding mechanism should change or needs to change, this is the funding mechanism that we have, and we do a pretty darn good job at funding our schools. So I would hate people to be watching this and think that we don't fund our schools as adequately as we possibly can. The council made sure that they were as adequately funded as we could fund them at our last annual budget meeting. So just those are the numbers. Better than half, about $32 million out of $51 million budget to the schools. So thank you.
Roxanne?
What we never want to do is set up a situation where it's an us and them, a town side and a school side. We're all in this together. So we never want to have a situation where we have to slash highway DPW budgets or the budgets of other essential services in order to fund our schools. This is why we need to have communication between the town and working together with the school system and with the school committee to craft a budget that is fair to everyone and that is funded. We do fund our schools, and we do fund our schools well. I am sure that there are efficiencies that we can engage in on both the town side and on the school side to get us to a number that is adequate and fully meets the needs of our students.
Sheila?
Yeah, so one of the problems that we've had in Greenfield recently is we did just receive a little bit of a windfall from the state. We got some additional Chapter 70 money, except instead of that money going straight into the classroom, that money went into OPEB, which funds retirements. And I don't think that there are any classroom teachers or, educators who have a problem with funding part of that through some of this money. It is legal. When they tried to request numbers from Town Hall to ask how many of these employees were covered by this and what percentage of that money was going there, they weren't able to get any information. The last time that I spoke with somebody about this was in the last several weeks, and at that point they still didn't have that information. This is where transparency comes into it, and this is why this has become such a protracted battle, is because we have certain people who don't want to see this money go into the classroom while everyone is advocating that that is what the state intended for them. That's where it was supposed to go. That's where we were supposed to put it.
Thank you. Next question. Economically, Greenfield is at a tipping point. Decisions made by the next mayor will impact the fabric of the city for years to come. What is your economic development strategy? One that embraces downtown or expands elsewhere? And Roxanne, that's your question first.
Well, the goal of my economic development program is to make Greenfield a better known and more advantageous location to locate a business. Here are some of the ways I believe that we can do this. With the help of the Economic Development Office, we'll create a highly focused marketing program to promote Greenfield as an ideal location at the crossroads of Route 2 and I-91. We need to promote our extraordinary internet broadband access, our growing rail service, our relative affordability, and our access to the resources of our higher education institutions. We'll amend or create better zoning regulations that make it more attractive and easier for entrepreneurial developers to locate here, perhaps utilizing many of our abandoned and underutilized properties. as one example, such as we can make small amendments to the general commercial use designation. Don't worry, I'm not going to go into zoning heavily here, such as the one that governs the French King Highway. That broadens its uses to allow light manufacturing by right rather than by special permit. Currently, that does not exist, and we do not know what's going to happen with that piece of property out there until it's finally out of the courts. We will fund and fully staff our building inspections and health departments so that there are fewer long delays in getting needed occupancy permits. Employ creative strategies for filling our empty storefronts, such as applying to the Massachusetts Vacant Storefronts Program to designate a defined downtown or other commercial areas as a certified vacant storefront district, which offers tax credits for leasing and occupying a storefront. It's not an either-or situation. We can have a viable, robust economy with both retail and commercial businesses.
Sheila?
I think that when we're thinking about our economic development plans, we need to make sure that we're thinking about not just the jobs that are available today, but we need to be focused and flexible so that the jobs of tomorrow are still able to come here in 20 years. Because anything we do now is going to have a ripple effect, and that's going to affect the future. I think that if we're focused on businesses that are subject to the whims of e-commerce and globalization, we're going to set ourselves up for failure. And as much as everybody tries to shop local and we try to shop downtown, people are limited. There are people who work 9 to 5 outside of Greenfield, and they're not able here to come here and shop. They're going to have to order on Amazon Prime. So I think that we need to focus our efforts on services, experience. We need to focus on recreation, tourism, because those are things that you can't replicate with an online model. I think that we still need to take care of our retail stores. We're not going to just leave them twisting in the breeze. But if we have less of a focus on bringing more of those in, it's easier to take care of the ones that we do have. I think that we need to make sure we're providing services like GSET needs to be available to all of our downtown businesses, because that is less expensive than going through Comcast, at least for residences. I imagine it's the same for businesses also. We need to make sure that we have a fully funded health department, like Roxanne mentioned, and make sure that all of these town services are working so that when they come here, it's an easy setup process. They need to know where to find the information that they need if they have questions about licensure. And I think that Town Hall could do a better job of working with the Franklin County CDC to share this information so that we can set people up for success.
Thank you. Brickett?
So I believe we need to start at the foundation level, and that is we need to be able to have the people to work in the jobs that we really want to have here. I've spoken with some owners of some of the precision manufacturing businesses who say, I have plenty of jobs. I can't find the people around here to work there because they don't have the skills coming out of the programs that they're in. So one of my ideas is that we have it at the Tech, but we also have it in Greenfield of a program that trains our kids that aren't going to go directly to college, who aren't going to go to a 4-year or 2-year school, or even some of the ones that are, so they can work that job to do that, to get them training on those specific jobs that we do have here so that they can stay here. And those jobs aren't subject to a $15 minimum wage. They pay more than that to start. They don't, the owners of those companies tell me, we don't care about $15 minimum wage because we don't have anyone that makes that little. So those are good jobs. Those are jobs that we need, and we need to be able to be producing the people here to be able to work in those jobs, because that's what they can't find, is the people to work in those jobs here in our community. We also need to attract more of them here. However, the more available labor that we have, the more people will be here, because I'm sure this isn't just a Greenfield problem where they can't find labor for those specific jobs. Retail comes and retail goes. That's the nature of retail. But you need retail in any city and any town, because the residents need to be able to shop. The residents need some place to get their daily needs. So I think it's a combination of both, and on my website, it's all laid out as to the economic plans that I see a vision for Greenfield.
Thank you. Now we'll have a 1-minute rebuttal, and that'll be with, you start that off, Roxanne.
Oh, okay. Well, I would like to emphasize that my economic development plan does focus on those things that we know are working here: precision manufacturing and light manufacturing, and attracting more of those, as well as a concerted effort to boost the creative economy. We have so many talented, creative people who are actually doing business in this town, and they need to be assisted in that. I would also add that we will assess the ability of our lesser-known available properties and also underdeveloped properties, such as like the Bendix property, which includes an additional 17 acres for potential businesses, such as an innovation center for more high-tech businesses and startups. We know that we have this extraordinary broadband access. We already have attracted businesses here that utilize it. We've got room for more.
Sheila?
Yeah, I think that another thing that we need to be looking at is how we're able to support the businesses that are starting in Greenfield. I think that a lot of tax incentives are sort of, these laws were written with a certain type of business in mind, and the nature of business has changed. So it's more difficult for a small startup to get the sort of tax break that they need. And I think that if we're going to be, trying to attract businesses here, sometimes a TIF or a tax break is a tool that we can use. But I think that we need to find more creative ways to make those available for homegrown businesses and people, our neighbors who are trying to start up new ventures here in town.
Thank you. Bridget?
So yeah, just a quick shout out to the health department, which is functioning very well now that we have had a complete turnover in that department. They are out doing the job that they're here to do and what they're meant to do. And I've heard nothing other than compliments about the job that they're doing. So just a quick shout out on that. I believe that all of these big ideas are great, but we need to focus on our fundamentals, and we need to focus on the fact that the reason that a lot of the buildings are vacant and underutilized is because the city adopted what's called the stretch code, which makes it very, very expensive to remodel and rehab certain buildings in certain places. Also, multifamily units, multifamily home units. But that's something that, unfortunately, we're going to have to look at as to whether that is something we need to remain involved in.
Okay. Next question. In recent months, the City Council weighed in on safe cities, abortion, and impeaching President Donald Trump. What place does national politics have in city government? And Sheila, you'll be the first to answer.
So I think that all three of those issues that you just brought up are very different. And I think that the reasons why they came to the council floor are very different. If we have something that's brought to us by a resident, then we try to debate it and we try to, I think that, if they're asking us to take care of this, then this is something that we should pursue. And we've had those. Very recently, we had a lot. And that, I'll be honest, it was a little bit frustrating for those of us in the city council because we do have some other things that we're trying to take care of. But we still have to give it the time and the energy that it deserves. So I don't think we had a very long argument over some of these issues. I know public comment went very long, but if you go back and you look at the council tapes, you can see that the councilors didn't spend a whole lot of time arguing over these issues. But, if they come to us, we're going to vote on them. I'm not going to refuse.
Okay. Bridget?
I feel differently. I believe they had no business being at the council level, and that they should have, under the committee chair, at the committee chair's level, they should have been either taken off the agenda or, they didn't belong. They did not belong on the council agenda at all. And in my opinion, I believe that they were brought forward because it was an election year and because they were divisive political issues. And we don't need more divisiveness in Greenfield. we have enough going on and we have enough things that we should have as a council been focusing on. And I disagree that we didn't spend a lot of time on it. Just those three issues took up many hours of time, and we call ourselves volunteers. Yes, we get a stipend, but we're all volunteers. It took up a lot of time where we could have been focusing on a lot of the other questions that we're talking about tonight, economic development, and getting down to the numbers in the library, and figuring out how we're going to revitalize downtown. We could have spent that time in so many more better ways than as much time as we spent on those three issues. And then those weren't the only three issues. There were other issues that did, in fact, get kicked out on committee chairs, which was the assault rifle ban. Excuse me, the assault rifle ban was not sent to council, and it was the right thing for the committee chairs to do. So that's how I feel about those three issues. And there was only one of them that I voted on. I didn't wish to vote on the other two because they had no business being at council.
Thank you. Roxanne?
I understand how some people can question the relevance of some of these to our town business. I tend to question it myself from time to time. But it is also important sometimes to weigh in on national issues. I question whether it's as important, if the level of importance that was attached to these was the correct level of importance, when there is a great deal of other actual town business that does involve taking votes to get things done. I can tell you that everywhere I went talking to people, the one question or the one concern that they had was indeed, how do we get our town council back on track doing the business of the town? And when they say that, they don't mean to ignore the issues that are plaguing us in national arenas at all. What they mean is, let's establish what's important, what are the priorities, what really needs to get done, and do our town business before we do some of the virtue signaling and other types of business. Not that they're not important. They can be very important and send very positive and very strong messages to our legislators. But we need to work on Greenfield and Greenfield's business first.
Thank you. Now we'll have the 1-minute rebuttal, and Sheila, you're first.
Yeah, so I disagree that the committee chairs should be picking and choosing what comes to the committee floor. I think that, democracy is tedious, democracy is time-consuming, and it's supposed to be, because if we become too autocratic, then we're not listening to our residents, we're not listening to the people that we represent in our precincts. If they want us to deal with an issue that's going to take a lot of time, I feel like that's what we signed up for. And I wanted to make just a small correction about the assault rifle ban. We actually sent that out for a legal opinion. I personally was concerned that this probably wouldn't pass muster with the Second Amendment. And I think some other councilors felt like it was a little too stringent also. So that's actually going to come back to committee chairs. I imagine it's not going to meet the legal requirements, so then it would die in chairs instead of moving to the council floor. But it's not that we decided not to take it up.
Thank you. Brickett?
I just want to say that the purpose of committee chairs is to filter through the things that come to the council. And there's a very good reason for that, because sometimes you get so many things that it is a situation where you have more things that need to be done more than others. So it is a way to filter it. It doesn't mean that those issues couldn't have made it anyway. It just means that those issues would have had to have been brought up at a meeting by a counselor versus being on the agenda, at which point they go through the process the same as they do if it goes through committee chairs. However, the committee chairs, the reason that committee chairs exist is to vet the issues that come to the council through the clerk's office, via the clerk's office to the president. Thank you.
Thank you. Roxanne?
Every one of those meetings that dealt with the issues that you brought up in your question had a quorum. Yet when it came time to reconcile accounts and set the tax rate, the town council could not get a quorum. I don't know why that was. There were a lot of excuses thrown out there, but excuses don't get the work done. It's very, very important that our town council focus on the issues relevant to Greenfield, particularly those that hit our pockets.
Thank you. Our next question. When is it appropriate for a mayor to veto an ordinance passed by city council? And Brickett, you'll be the first to answer.
Well, by charter, the mayor is allowed to veto any measure that is not an internal regulation of the council or a resolution of the council. The mayor has the authority to veto anything he wishes. So I don't, as long as it fits within that definition of the charter. So I mean, I don't know as there's much more to say about that. Whether it's appropriate or not, that's why we have the check and balance of overriding a veto if it's necessary. So, you know, a mayor can veto, again, anything he or she sees fit to veto, given those parameters.
Okay, thank you. Roxanne?
Right. I don't believe that, I know that I will, as your mayor, follow the charter. And I don't know that there is such a thing as when is it appropriate. I think you have to weigh what the issue is, what the veto, what is the basis for the action that the town council took, and is it wise to veto it in order for them to look at the issue further. So I will take each issue as it comes. I don't expect to have to use the veto power much at all, because we are getting a new council, half of a new council anyway. I think the council will vote, will do its business. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to work with the new council if I become mayor. So let's just work together to get the business of Greenfield done.
Okay, thank you. Sheila?
Yeah, so I agree that this would be something that you have to approach on a case-by-case basis. It's difficult to imagine what might come up in a year or 2 years or 3, but I could see if there was something that I felt was really dangerous or irresponsible, then I would absolutely veto. If the council overrode the veto, then, you know, that's how checks and balances work, and I think that we need to respect that also. So without having an idea of what the exact topic is, it's hard to weigh in. I think that it's good that we have these systems in place, because you shouldn't have too much power concentrated in any one person or body. I was not happy that the mayor vetoed Safe City, but there are some other times when maybe the mayor does need to veto things.
Okay. Time for a 1-minute rebuttal. Would you like to say more?
Yeah, I definitely, I can't sit here tonight and tell you whether I believe I would or wouldn't be vetoing anything coming down the road, because I don't know what's coming down the road. But the veto is a check between the executive side and the legislative side. If you can sit here tonight and say that you don't anticipate using it at all, then maybe you know what's coming in a year. I don't. Every veto is required to be accompanied with the supporting rationale and the reasons why it's being vetoed. You can't just say, I don't like it, here you go, disapproved. That's not the way that it works. You have to, while it's just a message and it holds no legal power, you have to provide your reasons for why you're vetoing something. And the reason that was in the charter, in my opinion, was because they didn't want someone who could just veto everything and not have to stand up and say why.
Thank you. Roxanne?
I don't have any rebuttal, really, to
that's fine.
this, other than to simply say that as mayor, I will work very closely to develop a strong relationship with the town council so that we can be working together on the same things. If I have to use that check and balance between the council and the executive office, I have no problem using it. I just don't anticipate that if we're all working on the same playbook to move us along and move us forward and make progress, that those vetoes will come few and far between.
Okay. Sheila?
Right. It seems to me also that having, a good relationship between the different people in town who are, charged with taking care of, all this town business, having that good relationship to begin with makes it feel like it would be less likely that we would have to deal with something like a veto. But it's good to have some sort of fail-safe just in case, because you never know what could happen.
Okay. Next question. Many residents say the city council should be consolidated and districts redrawn. What is your opinion? And Roxanne, we will start with you.
Well, I don't know what the consolidated picture looks like, so I don't know how to respond. What I can tell you is that when I first went into office on the school committee, we had a 27-member town council. That was pretty scary. We had a city manager, and we had a board of selectmen. So the school committee had to deal with all of them at various times. So I believe we have consolidated. I believe that the current makeup of the council, the way that it is structured, works very well. I've heard put out there that it's possible that somebody would bring forward an idea to have 9 counselors at large. That doesn't seem like a particularly onerous thing to have happen, because counselors at large then can focus on broad issues as well as the issues that are brought forward by citizens within the precincts. So, but I don't know. I'd have to think about that a little more. In terms of redrawing districts, again, without any specifics, I don't feel like I can comment on that. I know that we have 9 precincts now, and they are, because we're canvassing in them, difficult sometimes to figure out why they were laid out the way they were laid out. But I'm sure somebody had a rationale for that. We're an interesting city in that we are very densely populated in many areas, and then we go out into places like the Meadows and North Greenfield where we have fewer people. So there may be a better way so that everyone gets strong representation. I'd be willing to look at that and be willing to work with people on it.
Okay, thank you. Sheila?
Yeah, this is something that we've been talking about in appointments and ordinances, which is the committee that I chair. So we dealt with this last month and also the month before, and the conversation continues. And I'm at a point now where I haven't really made a decision. I could argue for or against. So right now I'm trying to learn more about it, learn more about what it would look like. I think one thing that I'm concerned about with redistricting, well, if everyone's going to be at large, I don't know why it would be necessary to redistrict. But I do like the idea of geographic representation. So I represent Precinct 6, and we're very close to downtown. Not everybody who writes to me is necessarily in my precinct. There are lots of people who will write to me from neighboring precincts because they feel like they know me better than their counselor, or sometimes they write to the entire council. And I'm happy to respond to anybody. But I think that people who live in my neighborhood expect me to understand some of the issues that they face because I'm driving on the same streets that they are every day. And maybe I spend less time in, other parts of town where I'm not going down this road every single day. And I don't know about the state of the potholes. So the idea of having people at large, I think probably we would lose a little bit of value by having everyone at large. But again, it's something that I'm open to because I think that there might be some other benefits that I haven't had a chance to think about yet.
Thank you. Brigitte?
Yeah, so this issue, I believe, is born from frustration of a lot of the residents who feel like the council is not doing their work. So it's their idea of how we could make it more effective and efficient. I have not heard a lot of people say it to me, but the people who have, that's been their motivation. In 2020, there will be a charter review committee that is, by charter, required to happen. And that committee will meet. I chaired the last one in 2010. In that committee, we talk about everything within the charter and what in the last 10 years do we believe should be tweaked, fixed, changed, etc. So that whether me as your new mayor thinks one way or another, it's really not up to me other than to be part of the solution within the realm of the charter establishing the committee to look at it. And we are such a small community. We call ourselves a city, but we're still a town at heart. Every counselor is an at-large counselor. None of us only hear from our precinct residents. We hear from everybody. And I believe that we all don't mind hearing from everybody. I certainly don't. So whether you have 13 or 9 or whatever you have, I was on the 27-member council, and it was onerous at times, but it was what we had at the time, and it worked until it didn't. And maybe this has worked until it doesn't. I don't know, but I think that the Charter Review Committee will have that as one of the things that they'll look at when they form in the upcoming year.
Thank you. 1 minute rebuttal, and Roxanne?
I have no rebuttal. I
Okay.
think we've all said our piece on that.
Sheila?
Yeah, I'm happy to move on.
Bridget?
I think we all three agree.
Okay, wow. All right. So this is actually a question that came from one of our readers. And we certainly received months ago, a number of letters on this, and that would be, how should the John Zahn Community Center be run? And Sheila, you'll be the first to answer.
Sure. I received a lot of emails about the John Zahn Community Center, and it was eye-opening how problematic this was. I don't use it a lot myself. We meet there for city council meetings. I once tried to book that for a forum, and I wasn't able to because it wasn't a city-specific event. So I understood a little bit of the frustration that some people had voiced, but what I saw when I got these emails is it wasn't people who are on my side of the argument who were, who seemed to have some issues. It was people who are saying, no, this needs to be a senior center, and we don't want our programming to get bumped. So that's not a perspective that I had. So it was really good to have these discussions with people. I think that this was originally meant to be a senior center. It wasn't changed to a community center until the last minute. And I think that we need to do something for our seniors. We spend a lot of money on education. We have, lots of programs for young people in town. So doing something for our seniors feels like it's only fair. They've lived here for so long. They're taxpayers also. And they should have first dibs. When it's not being used, we're able to use it for city council meetings. So I don't see a reason, as long as it's not putting any kind of burden on Hope and her team, I don't see a reason why we couldn't open it up for more community-oriented events. But like I said, I think it needs to be a senior center first, and then it can do other things when it's available.
Okay. Bridget?
So the community center should be able to be used as much as possible. We paid for it, we built it, it's a beautiful building. We should be able to use it, we meaning everyone within the community. Now, certainly there needs to be some structure to how that happens, but all city buildings are under the control of the mayor. That's just how it works. There is some dispute about school buildings, but be that as it may. So the community center should be able to be used for other events when the programming for the senior center is not interfered with. I believe that. I'm not sure that is working very well right now. I've received some complaints about how it's not able to be used, but it's empty, and I'm not going to sit here and make decisions on how it's being run or who is running it, but as the next mayor, that's something that I will have to be involved in, and sometimes it's up to the mayor to say, this is what's going to happen with this building. If there's nothing happening, we're going to be allowing it to be used. We paid for it, our taxes paid for it. It's a beautiful building. It should be utilized, and it should be utilized as much as possible. Which leads me to the next point. It seems, I've been on the council for many building projects, and every single one was, oh, there's going to be more community space. And then this same issue comes up with each one. Whoever is in charge of the building wants to maintain some sort of control, and it's hard to be able to use the building. So that's what I have to say.
Okay. Roxanne?
Well, there is a history here, and most of us, I think, know this history, who've been in Greenfield for a while. The Johnson Senior Center, or the Johnson Center, the seniors waited their turn to get their senior center. This senior center that we have now, which is beautiful, was built as a senior center with the Council on Aging in charge of how it is to be utilized. And the understanding was that it would be utilized as a senior center from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that is exactly what they're doing. They are fulfilling their charter to do that. It was changed, the name was changed to a Johnson Community Center, but there was no provisions put in there by the people who changed the name, which was the town council, for how we would handle the hours that it was available other than that. And I don't think the mayor actually thought about it either. So we have the problem that we have. I recently spoke with Hope on this issue in particular because I've been hearing about it as well. And she said that they have gotten to the point now where they believe they are ready to use it more equitably as a community center in off hours if we can figure out a way to get it scheduled. And it may take an extra person, a part-time person who acts as a scheduler. They are very busy at this senior center, and they're about to get busier because I believe their kitchen is finally going to get to be utilized. So it's going to be very busy between 9 and 4. The city takes it for a lot of community meetings and the other after hours, but there's still a lot of space there. I think we work together as a general rule, as a committee, as a community, eventually. I believe that we will resolve this problem. We certainly will when I'm mayor.
Thank you. 1 minute rebuttal?
Yeah, no, and I agree. It feels like this problem is coming to an end, and it feels like a solution is on the horizon. So that's good news. I understand that the mayor gets to manage our town buildings, and I think that when it's necessary, you exercise that power. I really worry about trying to micromanage things like, the day-to-day use of a building. I feel like the reason we have Hope there, running the Council on Aging and taking care of this community center is because somebody needs to do this as a full-time job, and allowing, the different department heads to manage their own day-to-day, I think, is going to be really important if we're going to make any progress anywhere else.
Thank you. Bridget?
I would just say a department is a department, and our department heads are supposed to manage their departments. The building was named the community center. I don't believe that it requires a full-time staff member or even a part-time staff member to schedule events in a building when other events are not happening. I see the problem. I hope that it's coming to an end because I see the problem as an issue that really didn't need to be this big a problem.
Okay. Bridget? Roxanne?
What Councilor Alice believes may not be what is actually happening, and what the impact of having it utilized all day long is. I would suggest that he speak with Hope McCary on that. we do have to pay for someone to open and close the building, or we have to have a volunteer to open and close the building. We do have to have it scheduled so that there are not people coming to a meeting that they thought they were able to come to and have that room filled by somebody else. There's all kinds of things that could occur. So somebody has to manage that. And that person has to either be someone attached to the senior center during the business hours, or somebody who is out of the rec department, or somebody who's out of the mayor's office or the town hall. But as I said, I think we can work this problem out.
Thank you. And now the candidates will give their closing statements, and we'll begin with Brickett.
Thank you. Well, again, I'd just like to say thank you for having all three of us here together to talk about the issues. And I appreciate all of the conversation that we've had tonight. I just want to speak directly to all of the residents and voters of Greenfield. I have been a lifelong resident here with you in our community for my entire life, 38 years. For half of that time, I have spent half of that time serving the community in many, many different roles. I understand the issues within Greenfield. I understand the budgeting process. I understand the intricacies of what goes on in Greenfield. Having served that long, by virtue of serving that long, you get to understand a lot of these things. I'm asking for your write-in vote on November 5th because I believe that I can take our community in the direction that it needs to go. We need to move forward, but we need to move forward cautiously, and we need to move forward and make sure we're not leaving anybody behind. Leaving people behind is not something that I'm willing to accept as the leader of our city. We talk about voting. All of us are vying for your vote because we think we're the right person for the job. None of us are perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. If you can find a perfect person on this panel, you should vote for them. Otherwise, you should vote for the person who you believe will do the best job at making sure that your hard-earned money is looked after as though it was their own. I am that candidate. I appreciate all of the time that I've spent talking and communicating, going to different events with all of the folks who are in our community, interested in what's going on, liking the process, or maybe not liking the process, but being part of the process. That is what community is about. The people in our community is what makes this a community. It's not the buildings. It's not the politics. It's the people. It is how we treat each other. I have run my campaign trying to make sure that I'm treating everybody the way that I want to be treated. And I hope that I'm satisfying that with all of those people, all of these people that I meet within the community. So a vote is earned, and I hope that I have earned the vote of everyone who is watching. Sure, I haven't from everybody, but I would like to think that I have earned the vote of most of the people who are watching. And with that vote, you will need to write me in on the ballot in the section that says write-in space only, and you need to write my name and my address, and that is Brickett Alice, 300 Wells Street, and it's B-R-I-C-K-E-T-T. Last name is A-L-L-I-S. I'm not going to take any more time. I believe that I've said what needs to be said. I hope that I have earned your vote. I hope everybody feels that that our campaign has done its best job to make sure that it's inclusive and that you can talk to us and that we're there and that we understand you and your needs within Greenfield. So thank you for having me. I absolutely appreciate that. If you'd like to have any more information on our campaign, it's www.electbrickett.com on the web, and it is Facebook/electbrickett on Facebook. And you can also email at electbrickett@gmail.com if you have any questions, or you would like to talk to me, or you'd like to meet me. I am happy to meet anybody, see anybody, talk about anything. Whether we agree or disagree, I believe it is that fundamentally, if we talk with people we don't agree with, we learn more than if we talk to people who we do agree with. So I'm happy to hear from anybody. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Roxanne, it's your turn.
So yes, thank you to all who watched this debate, and thank you again to the recorder and GCTV. I will always remember that being mayor isn't about the title. It's about the people I serve, you, the citizens of Greenfield. I'm ready, on your behalf, to take up the challenges of running a highly professional, efficient, and effective city government that invests your tax dollars wisely to achieve the progress that we need. Under my leadership, we will provide for fiscal integrity by adhering to municipal finance policies that manage our finances correctly under the law, that plans our town's financial future in a way that not only spends your hard-earned tax dollars, but also brings in revenue to offset and cope with future costs, and that provides accountability through a transparent and informative budget process. We cannot continue to make across-the-board budget cuts to key departments without it impacting the quality and efficiency of the essential services that protect our health and safety and educate our children. As your mayor, I will never adopt a go it alone or only I can handle this philosophy of governing. We simply can't afford to do that either. We must rely on our partners in the state and federal legislature to assist us in receiving major grants to fund our public projects. This includes our legislative delegations, as well as federal and state agencies, such as the DHCD for Housing and Community Development and projects, and Mass Works for infrastructure projects. It includes working with the Franklin Regional Council of Governments, the mayors of nearby cities, and with town officials of neighboring towns to see if we can find creative ways to solve mutually shared problems, share resources, and provide expanded services. Yet, as your mayor, I understand that my job is to lead by weighing the issues and the information I have available, and then committing to a course of action. I listen to others, but I'm realistic. The buck eventually stops, maybe starts too, with the mayor's office. I will seek the expertise and advice of those working around me to help make the decisions that are essential to making progress. We have great people working for the city of Greenfield. They need to be respected and listened to. They're who makes Greenfield work. Now more than ever, Greenfield needs a qualified and committed person at the helm of a $50 million operation. I am that person, and it would be my honor to serve as your mayor. By voting for me on November 5th, you will get what you've always gotten from me as a public service: steady, thoughtful leadership. I'm ready, and I hope you'll vote for me on November 5th.
Okay. Sheila?
Yes. So thank you once again for organizing this forum. And again, I have to thank my volunteers for all the hard work that they've done to help my campaign. I want to thank everyone who's here with me tonight, and I want to thank everybody who watched at home. I want to thank our town employees who sat with me and taught me a little bit more about the day-to-day work that they do behind the scenes to keep Greenfield on track. And again, I wouldn't be here without each and every one of you, so thank you. I'm running for mayor because Greenfield is ready for new leadership, and I'm prepared to work with everybody in our community on the issues that matter the most to us. Being mayor is a big responsibility, and I don't take it lightly. I've struggled to make ends meet, just like my neighbors, and I know what it's like to feel squeezed by bills. I started off as a teen mom working at a gas station for minimum wage before I joined the military to escape from poverty and an abusive ex, and I worked very hard to turn my luck around. My experiences have left me older and wiser, but I've never lost my compassion for those who are worse off than I am. I fought hard to pull myself up by my bootstraps, but I also recognized that I had opportunities afforded to me that many others don't have. As difficult as things have been, life has been good to me, and I feel called to work towards bettering my community. We live in a great town with open green spaces, a lively downtown, and a relatively affordable cost of living. We need to expand on those opportunities for our neighbors so that seniors and low-income residents are able to stay in their homes, so that people who are living with disabilities are still able to enjoy the same fulfilling community life that the rest of us enjoy, and so that our children have access to enriching educational experiences. I want to usher in a new age of transparency and accountability so residents can see our taxes working for us with their own eyes. I want people to talk to me about their priorities, and I want them to know that their ideas are important for moving Greenfield forward. I want to make Greenfield a great place to work so that our town employees can continue to serve our residents with the enthusiasm and professionalism that we all expect. I want us to rise to the occasion and lead Franklin County as the county seat by modeling excellent services, commitment to the environment, and unwavering dedication to innovation. I'm the right person to lead us because I'm a go-getter. I'm a solutions-oriented leader, and I'm not afraid to roll up my sleeves and get to work. I'm patient, I'm compassionate, and I care about the people that I meet. I'm not afraid to work hard, and I know that I've got a great team who's ready to work with me. I appreciate the dedication of my colleagues in their years of public service, but it's time for Greenfield to move forward with a new leader. This forum doesn't have to be the end of the conversation. Most of the questions that we were asked tonight are not the typical questions that people ask me when I'm knocking on doors. So I imagine that you must have questions that are still unanswered. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me through my Facebook page at facebook.com/SheilaForGreenfield. My website is SheilaForGreenfield.com. You can email me at SheilaForGreenfield@gmail.com, or you can call or text me at 413-387-7454. I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to serving as your mayor. And again, my name is Sheila Gilmore, and I'm hoping for your vote on November 5th.
Thank you. Well, that concludes tonight's forum. We certainly couldn't ask questions about every issue, but the Recorder staff will have another opportunity when we bring in the candidates individually for profile and also for our endorsement process. Thank you, Roxanne, Sheila, and Brickett for your participation. Audience, I feel they deserve applause. Thank you to GCTV for airing this forum live, and the station will be also rebroadcasting it over the next few weeks in anticipation of the election, and making it available on its website, gctv.org. And good evening, and Greenfield residents, please exercise your right to vote on November 5th. Good evening.
Thank you for watching GCTV's broadcast of the 2019 Greenfield mayoral debate. You can go online to gctv.org to view a recorded version of this program. Thank you to GCTV's crew and volunteers, and special thanks to Joan Livingston, editor of The Recorder.